The Treaty of Caddo-Cambyses was a treaty signed by France and Spain which ended the Habsburg-Valois War.
Guns and cannons became more commonly used in the war because they could wound from a distance. The Protestants persisted in thinking that the Roman Church should be destroyed, and the population losses caused by the plague and the disorder accompanying the Hundred Years' War had created such a labor shortage that serfdom almost disappeared. The increase in France's population in the late 15th and 16th centuries brought new lands under cultivation. The division of property among sons meant that most peasant holdings were very small. Francis I and his son Henry II governed through a small, efficient council. In 1539, Francis issued an ordinance that placed the whole of France under the jurisdiction of the royal law courts and made French the language of those courts. He also created a tithe, which is a tax on land that provided strength to the monarchy and supported the strong standing army. The Concordat of Bologna was a treaty with the papacy in which Francis I agreed to recognize the supremacy of the papacy over a universal council. It perpetuated disorders with the French Church. Lutheranism was a branch of Protestant Christianity that was created by Martin Luther, a reformer and a theologian. Calvinism was a reformed religion. Sizable numbers of French people were attracted to it because Calvin wrote in French rather than Latin. The French Calvinists were called Huguenots. The St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre was one event in the series of civil wars between the French Huguenots and Roman Catholics. This massacre led to fighting called the War of the Three Henrys, which was a civil conflict among factions led by the Catholic Henry of Guise, the Protestant Henry of Navarre, and King Henry III, who succeeded Charles IX. The Edict of Nantes was published by Henry IV in 1598 and granted Huguenots liberty of conscience and liberty of public worship in 150 towns. The reign of Henry IV and the Edict of Nantes helped to restore eternal peace in France. Although each of the 17 provinces of the Netherlands were united by the Emperor Charles V, they each had the right to self-govern and make their own laws and collect their own taxes. Most of the people in these provinces were Protestant. When Charles V was abdicated, he divided his territories between his brother Ferdinand, who received Austria and the Holy Roman Empire, and his son Philip, who inherited Spain, the Low Countries, Milan, and the Kingdom of Sicily, and the Spanish possessions in the Americas. By the 1560s, there was a strong minority of Calvinists in most of the cities of the Netherlands. From Madrid, Philip II sent 20,000 Spanish troops under the Duke of Alva to pacify the Low Countries. On March 3, 1568, 1,500 people were executed in the Council of Blood. Between 1568 and 1578, civil war raged in the Netherlands between Catholics and Protestants and between the 17 provinces and Spain. Calvinism became forbidden in many places. The 7 northern provinces, led by Holland, from the Union of Utrecht, and in 1581 declared their independence from Spain. The United Provinces had repeatedly asked the Protestant Queen of England for assistance. The wars in the Low Countries badly hurt the English economy. The murder of William the Silent eliminated the great Protestant leader and a chief military leader. The collapse of Antwerp signaled a Catholic sweep through the Netherlands. For these reasons, Elizabeth produced £250,000 and 2,000 troops to the Protestant cause in the Low Countries. The monastery of St. Lawrence of the Escorial was a home to the Jeromite monks, tomb for the king's Habsburg ancestry, and a royal palace for Philip. These royal apartments were in the center of the Italian Renaissance. The Catholic ruler of Spain, Philip II, spent many of his days here. Philip II relied more on God for politics after the death of his fourth wife. This led to his lack of flexibility concerning religious toleration and the Inquisition. According to Philip, toleration was the growth of heresy, civil disorder, and violence. In that sense, he was a man of his times. He was much like Luther and Calvin, who called for individual liberty of conscience and insisted upon the right to destroy heresy. He would have destroyed heresy himself if it wasn't for the fact that he ruled the first global empire in history. Philip was preoccupied with the advance of the Ottoman Turks into Western Mediterranean, the death of his heir, the death of his wife, and the revolt in Moriscos in Granada. After the death of the Turkish army leader, Suleiman the Magnificent, only then could he focus on the heresy in Netherlands. According to Philip II, The Heersen Netherlands was a British problem. In 1586, Mary, the heir to Elizabeth of England, became involved in a plot to kill Elizabeth. Philip II backed this up because of his hopes to reunite England with the Catholic Europe. However, Mary was discovered and killed in 1587. The Pope promised to pay Philip 1 million gold ducats when Spanish troops landed in England after hearing the news of Mary's death. Farnese believed that to subdue the Dutch, they would have to cut off England's support. Philip's naval advisor came up with a plan to have a vast fleet sail from Lisbon to Flanders, fight off Elizabeth's navy if attacked, meet with Farnese, escort barges across the English Channel, and basically transport the Flemish army. In the actual Spanish Armada, 130 Spanish vessels met with 150 English vessels. English won because of their smaller, faster, more maneuverable, and greater firing power ships. In addition, Spain was forced to deal with storms, spoil of food and water, and adequate ammunition in the English fire ships that caused Spain to scatter. After the Spanish Armada, Spain rebuilt their navy so that after 1588 it was greatly improved. Elizabeth continued to financially and militarily support the Dutch, but neither England nor Spain got much territory from them. In 1609, Philip III agreed to a truce that recognized the independence of the United Provinces. Back home, the Peace of Augsburg of 1555 was having difficulties. According to the settlement, the faith of the king determined the religion of his subjects. Lutherans ignored this and acquired German bishoprics. Calvinists were not included in the settlement, and so they converted many princes. And the Jesuits reconverted several Lutheran princes to Catholicism as well. The Protestant Union of 1608 was formed by the Lutheran princes. They were against the Catholic League of 1609. Each were determined the other would not make any religious advances, which led to the 30 Years' War. The 30 Years' War was divided into 4 phases. The first was the Bohemian phase that started in 1618 and ended in 1625. It was a civil war in Bohemia between the Catholic League, led by Ferdinand, and the Protestant Union, headed by Frederick. The Bohemians fought for religious liberty from Catholics or the Habsburg rule. In 1620, Frederick was defeated by the Catholic forces at the Battle of the White Mountains. Ferdinand II followed up Ferdinand and wiped out Protestantism. Within 10 years, Bohemia was Catholic. The second phase started in 1625 and ended in 1629. It was called the Danish phase. During this time in the war, the Catholic Imperial Army won against Denmark. In 1629, it was the peak of Habsburg power. The third phase started in 1630 and ended in 1635. It was called the Swedish phase. During this time, Cardinal Richelieu subsidized the Swedes, which weakened Habsburg power in Europe. The German Lutheran Adolphus headed a Baltic empire under Swedish influence, which led to many victories and ended the Habsburg wishes to unite all of the German states under imperial authority. The fourth phase started in 1635 and ended in 1648. It was called the International phase. The death of Adolphus in 1632 and the defeat of the Swedes at the Battle of Nordlingen in 1634 led to the French entering the war on the side of the Protestants. French foreign policy was based on opposition to the Habsburgs. In 1635, Richelieu declared war on Spain and sent financial and military assistance to Swedes and Protestant princes. The war lasted because of the lack of resources needed for a quick victory. The war ended in October 1648 with the Peace of Westphalia. After this peace, conflicts over religious faiths ended. The treaties recognized the sovereign, independent authorities of over 300 German princes. After this peace, the Habsburg Emperor's power was severely limited. The Holy Roman Emperor continued to be a federation. The independence of the United Provinces of the Netherlands was acknowledged. Political divisions within the empire, Germany's weak frontiers, and the acquisition of Alsace increased France's size. Sweden received money and parts of German territories along the Baltic Sea. The treaties denied papacy the right to participate in German religious affairs. It also made it that the Augsburg Agreement of 1555 should stand permanently, including Calvinism in the agreement. The northern German states were now Protestant, while the southern German states were Catholic. Germany, after the 30 Years' War, ended up being disastrous. It was awful for the economy and society. 1/3 of the urban residents and 2/5 of the inhabitants in the rural areas died. Germany was depopulated, partly by disease, partly by military actions and partly by the thousands of refugees who fled to safer areas. All of Europe experienced economic turmoil caused by the influx of silver from South America.